Hi everyone, my name is Kim Winslow and I am coming to you today to talk about forest ecology. And you'll notice that I have my screen right in front of me and you will be able to see me notate all along the way. So I hope you guys will be able to follow along that way. Let's talk about some of our learning objectives before we jump right into it. So we're going to start by defining a forest because it can mean a lot of different things to different people. We'll also be talking about the unique characteristics of a forest. What makes it a forest? Why would we consider it a forest? Next, we'll be able to differentiate between the types of different forests and also the components within them. And then we'll be able to describe different ways that we group forests so you can know that in terms of management plans in the future. So let's start off by talking about what is a forest. If you're like me, you probably immediately think of trees. I also tend to think of an ecosystem because it's not just the trees when you're talking about a forest. You can think of the understory, you can think of the birds that use it for habitat. So ecosystem or habitat. I also think about it for its qualities in terms of environmental services or ecosystem services. So you can think about forests as air purifiers. And beyond that, we can also think of forests as places where we get raw material. So either timber to be building products, or we can think of forests in terms of fruit trees where we are able to get our fruit. So I'll just write down products as a way to remind us of that. So as you can see, when I talk about forest, there are a number of different things that come up. So in order to standardize this, FAO, or the Food and Agricultural Organization, was able to provide one definition as to how we should consider a forest. The first piece to highlight is this: it is at least 0.5 hectares. So that breaks down to about 1.2 acres, and it's a particular size. The other thing to notice is this 5 meters tall component. So 5 meters tall is a particular height. And then lastly, this 10% of it is crown cover. And what we mean by that is there's 10% of canopy cover, or the amount of light that's getting through to the bottom. So those are the three pieces that we should keep in mind moving forward as the standard definition of a forest. Now, the first thing I want to talk about, because I don't know about you, but I had no idea how much 0.5 hectares was. So again, I said it was about 1.2 acres. But if you also think about it in terms of a square, there are a couple examples on your screen that show that size and show how we might be able to delineate whether or not a particular area is a forest or not based on the size alone. So in the upper left-hand corner of your screen, you're going to see Waterman Farm, and if you're not familiar with that yet, you will likely be very soon. It's used for a lot of our SE&R coursework that's outdoors. So there's a small block in the upper left-hand corner of that picture, and that is the 70 by 70 or 0.5 hectare area in Waterman Farm. So since it's just this little tiny bit of the forest, we are going to say yes, this is definitely a forest because it's much larger than that 0.5 hectare standard definition. Next, another example actually here on campus is Chadwick Arboretum. So that is the second picture that you see on your screen, and it's delineated by a red box. Now here you can see trees kind of sprawled throughout the area. So a little more sparse, but if we're talking about size alone, then yes, Chadwick Arboretum would be considered a forest. And then just so those of you like me who have just difficult times with spatial understanding, we also wanted to point out that Cotman Hall, which hopefully a lot of you are familiar with, Cotman Hall on campus is almost exactly a hectare in size. So you can see that yellow square again is right next to Cotman Hall, delineating that size. So we talked about the size and tried to get a handle on that. We talked about the height, and we also talked about the general cover. But we also want to talk about what might be missing from FAO's definition. If you'll remember, when we started this conversation, we were talking about things like it's an ecosystem. We were talking about ecosystem services that it provides. So if you even notice here, we pulled out a couple pictures to show you what this FAO definition might not consider, but we should consider when talking about forest management. So the first is this water purification. You can see that water is running through the forest system, and the plants throughout act as water purifiers, and it's a really vital ecosystem service. The other thing you'll see here is this sweet little owl standing up in the tree. That talks to us about, again, how birds and other animals use forest as habitat. So not only just the trees, but the ecosystem as itself. And then finally, my last point was how it also serves for products and serves to help us in terms of making different things or sourcing out different materials. So those are pretty key things that are missing from FAO's definition, especially when we're talking about management moving forward. Also, as I was kind of alluding to, a forest is more than just trees. So looking at a forest as a whole, you can also consider that it has shrubs or other understory plants that in and of themselves will serve certain purposes, such as habitat or shade or air purification again. And also that it really operates as an ecosystem. So yes, there are trees and those are unique features of a forest. When you think of a forest, you often think of trees. But you also have to consider the fact that it's with the trees, with the ground, with the understory, and the biota and abiotic factors that all work together to build an ecosystem that is habitable by multiple different things. So this is a big point to keep in mind, especially when we're talking about management. We'll stop there for right now, and we'll continue next time talking about how trees are unique features of a forest.